All right, let's set the scene. The year is 244 CE. We're way out on the fringes of the Roman Empire, where the Euphrates River slices through the desert. A young emperor dies a long, long way from home. And his death? Well, it kicks off a cold case that has kept historians guessing for more than 1,700 years.
And that's really the heart of it, isn't it? That's the one question we're trying to answer today. Did Gordian III, the Emperor of Rome, go down swinging, a hero in the heat of combat? Or was he taken out, a piece removed from the chessboard by someone who wanted his power?
So to even begin to figure this out, we have to treat the battlefield of Misiche like a crime scene. Seriously. The evidence is all over the place, the witness statements are totally biased, and the stakes? You couldn't imagine anything higher. We're talking about the throne of the most powerful empire on the planet.
Okay, let's meet our main players. First, the victim, Gordian III. He's only 19. Back in Rome, people love him, but, and this is key, he's got almost no real experience. He's the last of his line. And our primary suspect? Marcus Julius Philippus, a man we know as Philip the Arab. As Praetorian Prefect, he wasn't just some bodyguard. No, he commanded the emperor's personal guard and he controlled the army's entire supply chain. The food, the money, the weapons. This gave him a staggering amount of power and, most importantly, direct access to the emperor.
But see, to really get a handle on the crime, you first have to understand the world it happened in. The mid-3rd century, this was not the golden age of Rome you see in the movies. This was an empire in a constant, brutal, violent crisis.
Just think about this number for a second. In the 50 years around this whole incident, something like 24 different men claimed to be emperor. It was a revolving door of power, and the way out was almost always bloody.
On the inside, the empire was practically tearing itself apart. Provinces were always rebelling, putting their own generals forward as the new emperor, and just ripping the state to shreds from within. And on the outside, you had so-called barbarian tribes pushing in from every single border. The famous Roman legions were stretched incredibly thin, fighting on what felt like a dozen fronts at once, just trying to hold things together.
And this gets us to the most important point of all. For an emperor in this era, getting assassinated wasn't just a risk, it was basically the expected outcome. The real power wasn't in the Senate anymore. Oh no, it was with the legions, and every single ambitious general knew it.
Which brings us right back to our suspect, Philip the Arab. He wasn't one of those fancy Roman aristocrats. He was a guy from the province of Arabia, driven by pure, raw ambition. And in this chaotic world, that made him the perfect person to play the game.
And just look at how fast Philip gets himself into position. In 243, he's made Praetorian Prefect. Suddenly, he's the guy in charge of the army supplies and making sure the soldiers are loyal. Then, later that same year, his co-prefect, who just so happened to be Gordian's very powerful father-in-law, conveniently drops dead. This leaves Philip as the one and only power behind the young emperor, right as they're marching into enemy territory. The opportunity? It was absolutely perfect.
And here, right here, is where our investigation smacks right into the heart of the mystery, the Battle of Misiche. What in the world actually happened there? Well, we basically have two witnesses, the Roman Empire and the Persian Empire. And believe me, they tell completely different stories.
So the Persian story is crystal clear. It's confident, it's triumphant. They say they won a huge, decisive battle, and Gordian was killed right there in the thick of it. The Roman account, on the other hand, it's a total mess. It's vague, it contradicts itself, and it's just uncomfortable. You can almost feel the Roman historians wanting to change the subject as fast as they can.
And if you want to know how confident the Persians were, just look at what they did. The winning king, Shapur I, had his version of events literally carved into a giant stone monument for everyone to see, forever. He even renamed the city where it happened, Victorious is Shapur. I mean, there's no wiggle room there. He's claiming a total win and the death of an emperor. Period.
So with these two completely different stories, historians have come up with three main theories about what really happened to Gordian III. Let's lay them out, just like a detective would present the possible scenarios.
Okay, theory number one, the soldier's death. This is the heroic, tragic version. The Battle of Misiche was a total disaster for Rome. Gordian, acting like a true Roman leader, was up at the front lines fighting and was killed in action. Philip, being the highest-ranking guy left alive, was hailed as the new emperor by the shell-shocked troops. In this version, he's no murderer. He's just the next man up.
Now, theory 2 is a bit more complicated. The opportunist.
In this scenario, Gordian isn't killed on the spot, but he gets a fatal wound. He dies from his injuries a little while after the battle. So Philip didn't create the crisis, but he played it like a master, convincing the army he was the only one who could get them out of this mess.
And then we have Theory 3. This is the dark one, the one that's been whispered for centuries. The conspirator. Here, Philip is the absolute villain of the story. He uses his job as Praetorian Prefect to mess with the army's supplies, making the soldiers angry and hungry. A demoralized army is an army that's easy to beat. Or, as some sources hint, it's an army that might just turn on its own leader. Gordian is taken out of the picture, and suddenly Philip's path to the throne is wide open.
So, which one is it? Which theory actually holds water? Well, to get to a verdict, we have to look at what happened immediately after and ask the oldest question in any investigation.
Cui bono. It's Latin for who benefits, and the answer here is just overwhelmingly obvious. Philip the Arab. Everything, and I mean everything, that happened after Gordian's death worked out perfectly for him.
Just look at his moves. As soon as he's emperor, he makes peace with Persia, paying them a fortune to let his army leave safely. Now, was that a smart general saving his men, or a co-conspirator paying off his partner? He gets back to Rome, solidifies his power, and then, and this is a brilliant move, he has the Senate declare Gordian a god. This wasn't just about showing respect. Deifying your dead predecessor was a classic political move. It showed you were pious, that it was a smooth transition, it made you look legit. So, was it the act of a loyal friend or the final move of a killer covering his tracks?
Of course, the story doesn't stop there. Philip the Arab actually ruled for 5 years, which was pretty good for that chaotic time, before he himself was killed in battle by the next guy trying to take the throne, and his son, murdered by the Praetorian Guard that very same day. The cycle of violence he might have kicked off, yeah, it came back for him in the end.
And so in the end, we're left with this one lingering question. When Philip made Gordian a god, was that an honorable epitaph for a young emperor who died fighting for Rome? Or was it the final, clever piece of a murderer's alibi, designed to hide a crime committed in the desert sands? The truth is buried out there somewhere, and history, well, it never fully closes the case file.